focus.
Both us focus.
Both us focus.
What'd you call me? Hey there, I'm Craig.
I'm John.
And welcome back to ConBroSationalists. In this episode, we're going to do another philosophy question since I think the last one kind of worked out so well.
Yep.
So I'll let you read.
Give me the topics.
This one only has 17 topics on it, so we're going to do.
Don't roll above that.
All right, I'll try not to. How about a
easy?
faux?
See, right up at the
Faux,
top.
faux.
1, 2, 3, 4. What do you think your future self will remember about you now?
Oh, my future self will remember about me now.
Yeah. What do you think your future self will remember about you now?
That I should have done more.
I would agree with that. Should have done more sooner.
Yes, should have done more sooner.
It's one of the things I regret.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah, and it's not even like it's not anything about the financial piece. It's just about giving back quicker, right? Yeah. Because I think I've been fortunate to have lived the life that I have lived, but I've not been as fortunate as some of the others.
Yeah. And
there have been people who have done more with less than I have done with what I have.
Yeah.
And I think at this point in my life, I want to do those things where I can give back more now than I could have.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things like I don't know why I waited so long, but I think just life, the way life kind of weaves in and out of things, I think took me to this point in time.
Well, maybe, and it's one of those things too, right? As like you don't start realizing these things until you mature.
Right.
We talk about it all the time on and off of these of how our views have changed, especially over the years.
Right.
I told you we had our whole Second Amendment episode, and I told you that 5 years before that I would have fought my brother till I was blue in the face on why he was wrong, on why we needed to get rid of bump stocks and all those things.
Right.
Where today I'm like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
No, he's 100% right, and he's a little older than me. Maybe it's just one of those things you have to come into your prime, or whatever you want to call it, to realize that you need to do more. I don't know.
Yeah, and again, I still harken back. This question is kind of the same thing. To what's on my buddy Michael's gravestone is in youth we learn, in age we understand.
Yeah.
And I think part of understanding is recognizing that there are things that we should have done or we could have done earlier that had we not been afraid or timid or whatever the reason is, right? If you don't want to do something, people are going to come up with any excuse under the sun to not do it.
Yeah.
Right? That's just typical. And I think a lot of that was probably, I think I'm one of those perfectionists, to a certain sense. I don't want to do nothing. I don't want to do something that I cannot hit it out of the park right off the bat. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things I overanalyze a little bit. But at the end of the day, if it's something that I want to do, kind of like this deal, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make it happen.
Yeah, that Game Changers group that I was part of for work, I had to find a book and do a report on it, and I came across the book Dare to Lead, and there's a thing in there that says you can't be courageous about being vulnerable, and and maybe that's why, right? Maybe it takes you to be years or whatever to be courageous enough that you're not afraid of the vulnerability.
That might be. I think you might be onto something there, because I think by looking at that, right? If you look at it being older, you're not concerned about what everybody else thinks of you.
Yeah.
You don't, like, all that other bullshit just kind of goes away.
Yeah.
You deal with things as you need them to be, and you know, like, you got emotional on the Second Amendment episode.
Yeah.
I got emotional on the episode when we were talking about heroes, specifically when I was talking about the potential deal that, you know, my grandson's going to have to face.
Yeah.
And like you said, 10 years ago, we wouldn't have had those conversations. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have shown that.
Yeah.
But that's part of.
Yeah, me either. Like,
you know what I mean? Like,
I've gotten soft over the years.
It's. I don't even think it's
not
soft.
soft.
I think it's compassion, right?
Yeah.
Like, the level of compassion has come up,
Yeah.
and you're recognizing, because I'm telling you, man, kids change things,
They do.
but grandkids change even more, right? There are things that I think about now that I never would have thought of with my own daughter.
Yeah.
And why I don't know. It's just that generational thing, and I can't tell you what it is, but it's the coolest thing in the world to see your lineage continue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just one of those things, like, hey, you know, forget the circumstances, right? Like, my grandson is here, and that's all I care about. But he's here, and so now with some of these things, right? Like, your perspective's changing. You soften a little bit of those edges.
Yeah.
But I think it's more so because the compassion starts coming out, because you're seeing another generation try and, like, navigate themselves through this great big blue floating ball in the middle of space, spinning around the sun at 86,400 miles an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just, like, you look at things a little different.
Yeah, it's got to be just a maturity thing.
Yeah.
Like, because like, going out and coaching, like, started changing my mindset on a lot of that stuff too. Like, I started looking back and I was like, I've wasted so much time. I should have been doing this a long time ago.
Right. Now
I've missed 2 years because we're trying to protect ourselves and all that from the pandemic, and it's sucked.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, when we started coaching, I enjoyed it, and I was like, I'm potentially making a difference in these kids' lives.
Yeah.
You know, I'm doing the stuff at work with the other stuff that I'm doing there, and, like, I just think about it all the time. Like, golly, I could have been doing stuff like this when I had a lot more energy and
right when my fuel tank didn't run out so quick.
Whenever I wasn't working as much and I had more energy, and now I'm at the point now to where I have to balance that too. Of, I've got family, like, I still need to make sure that I can coach my kids and be there for my kids. So how am I going to take time away from them to do these other things?
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's that balance, and that's the difficult thing to do with all of this stuff, is finding that balance in your life to be able to afford yourselves it's not even financially, right? But to afford yourselves the time to be able to go out and do some of this stuff, because that, you know,
there's only so many hours in the day,
right? And there's only so many hours in the day, and there's only so much of me, and at some point something has to give. And generally, my fuel tank is depleted and out, and then I need to recharge and reset before I can go and do that stuff. And in 5 years ago, 5 years ago, I wasn't in a position work-wise that was healthy enough for me to do that.
No.
And over the last, I think I've told you, I said over the last 4 or 5 years, I've tried to put myself in specific situations that have been able to afford me the opportunity to do those things.
It's kind of funny that we had the exact same, like, regret.
Yeah. It's not too late to change it, right? That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, we're doing some of the things that we wanted to do. And,
yeah.
and getting back to, like I was talking about in the fall, like I plan on, even if my kids aren't out there, I'll probably, like, I still want to go out there and actually, like, I'll be a coach for a U10 team or whatever.
Yeah.
Hopefully my kids will want to be out there though.
That's kind of the cherry on top, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is. It's
bonus.
It's it's hard to think about how much time I've wasted.
Yeah, I wish. I hate to use that phrase "wasted," right? Because I don't feel that it's wasted, but I think my focus and energy was misdirected.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't want to say that anything I did was wasted.
Yeah. But then you sit here and you think about it and you're like, wow.
Yeah, I should have done more. I
Yeah.
should have done more. And that's why I feel and I hope that we can get this to that point too of saying, we should have done more, but we're doing those things now. And hopefully making an impact in somebody's life, big or small, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of people. We talked. I think we talked a little bit about in the Second Amendment one where we were talking about people growing up and not having the help for themselves and doing those kinds of things. But that's not. They're more the exception than the rule, because there are a lot of people that are brought up in very turbulent homes.
Mm-hmm.
That can't do the things that they need to do, but then they fight tooth and nail to get out of that situation, to put themselves in a better situation to be able to go back and do those things.
I mean, my upbringing wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst by any means. People had it way harder than I ever did.
Right.
But like, I feel like I'm doing more and better for my family and other people than what maybe my upbringing should have afforded.
Right, but
I chose to push through all that stuff and
right,
and doing this, right. Like, maybe a couple people watch this video and they start thinking differently. Maybe they take that courage and vulnerability deal out, and I never thought about it that way until I read that book. I would have never read that book if work didn't tell me I had to. They didn't tell me I had to read that one in particular. The other books that we read, they did give to us, but that one, just like, I was looking at books and it stood out to me, and I was like, it's kind of longer than what I want it to be because I have to do this report and everything on it, but I just kept coming back to it. So, and here I am using it.
Yeah, it sounds like a good book. I may have to put it on my list of stuff to read. But
yeah, she's a Brene Brown. She's like a German American, raised in a tough household to where, like, you sucked everything up, sort of deal. And she talks about that in the book too. Like, you don't have to. Like, I wasted a lot. She talks about wasting a lot of her time in that mindset of suck it up, you'll get better.
Yeah.
Attitude, and that she was pushing it on to her family, and then, like, completely had to backtrack from it. And she writes and tells some stories in a way that are fairly close to us.
Oh, right.
Like,
okay.
she just kind of throws it out there. It's kind of no nonsense. She
kind of no filter.
No filter. So, like, even though it's talking about feelings, I guess, or whatever, it makes it kind of hard to read, but it was actually, like, the overall meaning and some of the stuff in it is actually really, really good.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to look into that, because what I find very, very odd is there are more people who want to be worker bees than who want to lead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing to me the amount of people that are that way. Like, they just I just want to do this, and this is all I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. I'm perfectly content being where I'm at. I just want to stay in this nice, nifty, neat little box.
Yeah. I think a lot of it's just the fear of responsibility, honestly.
I think it's a
that,
responsibility and accountability.
Yeah, it's that having enough courage to be vulnerable enough to say, I'm really good at this, but if I do this, I can fall flat on my face.
Yep.
And I mean, we've talked about it in a few different episodes on a few different occasions about how negativity always outweighs the positivity of what could be.
Right.
So to put
the potential.
Yeah, to put yourself in that place that you could take a huge flat fall on your face, a lot of time overweighs like, no, I could hurdle this and just kill it.
Right.
Crush it. Just
right.
be the best of whatever it is that you're doing.
Right.
So maybe that's why.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, there's also the flip side, which is the fear of failure.
Yeah.
Right. The absolute fear of failure, because people, nice, neat, nifty little box, because they know what's in here. It's safe and contained, and they know if they don't do anything to break out of this box, they're going to be fine.
Well, and a lot of times, failure is way more extreme. Like, you could be the best at this, just staying in like the business aspect of it, right? You'd be the best at what you do here and stay there and you're fine. Right? You'll hit a spot to where you'll never make any more money, but you'll still be the best that's there. But if you do go up here, you failing up here could cost you your entire job and career.
Right.
There's not very many jobs that say, hey, we know you moved up, but you kind of suck at it. Would you like to move back down? How often does that actually happen?
Nah, any place I've ever worked, not very often.
Yeah, usually it's, there's the door.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's basically what happened with my job before I landed here.
Yeah.
Was I stuck my neck out and I got dilapidated.
Yeah.
And decrepit.
Yeah.
But because of me taking that challenge and saying, yeah, you know what, you need somebody, I'll be that guy. And then that turned out to be a not so wise decision.
Yeah.
But it led me to be in the position that I'm in now, which has afforded me the opportunity to do additional things.
Yeah.
And even though we're 200 miles away,
yeah,
it's affording us the opportunity to try this.
You've got a lot more time with this career than you've had in a long time.
Yes. Yep.
So.
And I've put almost 25 years into my career doing the same thing. Like I talked about a little bit earlier,
yeah.
It's one of those things like, have I hit kind of the mental block of I'm kind of done with this, I'm kind of disenchanted with it, do I need to try something else? I think I said maybe it's my midlife crisis because I haven't had one yet. I don't know. But it's just one of those things like I'm content doing what I'm doing, but I don't know that it's always going to be the same thing, but that's one of those things like, do I need to go outside of my comfort zone because that's what I'm personally driven by? Because again, I feel like I haven't done enough.
Yeah.
Or can I have enough self-restraint to basically say, no, I'm good. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to stay right here. Because there's a lot of that out where I mean, and not just where I'm at now, but in previous things, people, you would think that somebody would jump at the opportunity to kind of step up. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of people just don't. They don't do that.
My brother had talked to me like when he lost his last job.
When he was in Chicago?
No, my other brother.
Oh, okay.
When he lost his last job because they went out of business, he said, I think I just want to go just get a normal job. Like, I don't want to be in management anymore. Like, I just want to go work.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, but like you're not one of those people, unfortunately. Like you're always going to be the guy that's, well, not always. Most of the time you're going to be the guy that outperforms everybody around you. So you're always going to be afforded those positions.
Right.
Are you mentally strong enough to say, no, I don't want that. I don't want that opportunity. Because you do. You get yourself unfortunately, everybody wants to be the best that they can be and take
right.
more responsibility. And most of the time, it's very hard to turn it down. Then there's the fear on the other side, too. Like, if you turn it down one time,
will they not ever
does that mean that you just turned it down forever?
Right.
Will they never revert back to you and be like, hey, I know you didn't want this before, but are they automatically going to go to somebody else?
Right. I mean, unfortunately, in today's corporate society, right, in a capitalistic driven society, I don't know that opportunity is going to knock twice. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's one of those things like, hey, I see where he's going, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like, maybe I have to take it right now.
Yeah. I mean, my wife is facing something similar to that. She got offered to take over another store, see over 2 stores, and she turned it down. Part of which because of the stress that it would have put on the family.
Sure.
And she didn't realistically. The demographics of where we live in the surrounding areas, the feasibility of actually doing it would have just been, it would have been hard.
Right.
So she turned it down. And now I think it's always in the back of her mind, like,
did I just shoot myself in the foot?
If I get like a regional type manager position, did I just shoot myself in the foot? Did I lose out on those opportunities because I was afraid to do this step?
Yeah, but I think doing more doesn't necessarily mean doing more when somebody else is ready for it. I think doing more has to be when you're ready. You know what I mean?
And there's that balance too. The company's wanting you to do this to a certain aspect to just use you.
Right. They recognize your talent and your resources.
Yeah, and they can save money by not hiring another, because they're not going to give you 2 incomes.
No.
Even though you're doing 2 jobs, they're not going to give you 2 incomes. They might give you an income and a half. So is it worth the company kind of using you, in essence, to better you, but better them more?
Right.
I don't know. It's something that you have to kind of weigh in, I guess, too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and depending upon where that other location is, too, right? Like, there's time that you have to travel there.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
if something happens, you have to drop whatever you're doing and go from one location to the next. And
yeah, and if it was across town, I don't think there would have been a question, honestly. I think she would have done it.
Yeah, but you're talking a couple
hour. Yeah, hour and a half away.
Right.
I mean, it's hour and a half away in a store that's been an issue. So she looked at it the right way and was like, well, I'm going to have to spend more time down here than what you're kind of telling me.
Yeah.
Leading me to believe.
Well, but she also knows the history of that particular location,
exactly.
too. So
yeah, I think if maybe we would have moved from out of town and, because of that possibility of running 2 stores without knowing the backstory on it, it probably would have been something that she would have moved for,
Right.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So.
But it's one of the kind of the driving factors about coming down here was hopefully the opportunity to do more while we were here.
Yeah.
And that it would have afforded us the time to come home, gather up stuff, and whoosh, right back out the door again to do other things, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that is. But unfortunately, because of when we moved, right in the heart of the pandemic, so we're just now getting to the point where
that you're moving,
that we can start looking at some of that stuff. But that's one of those things about future self to younger self is should have absolutely done more and started sooner, right? Rather than again, like I'm pushing that magic 50 age, and it's just. I wish because again, I always throw back to my dad. My dad was involved in a whole lot of stuff at a fairly young age, but most of the stuff that he was involved in was going to have a direct impact on both myself and my brother.
Yeah, because y'all did scouts.
Yeah, Boy Scouts, and he didn't really do much on the soccer side, but that was just because of he could fit scouting into his schedule. But he couldn't really do much other than if we ever had to go to tournaments or travel on the weekends or whatever, like he was always there, except for like when I played high school ball. But most of the time there, if we went to wherever he was at, he would come and watch, and he would come and watch when he could. But he made the sacrifice of being out of town and missing some of those things to avoid my brother and I from having to move, because again, as part of his background, right? But I wish I could have taken kind of one page out of his book and started sooner with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
Than waiting until I hate to use the phrase "day late and a dollar short," but
well, and like you said, we all get trapped up in life. I mean, there for a while, you were working and missing
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, easy things that were right there.
Yep.
Not even things that were far away or anything.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and but again, that comes back to the capitalistic society and chasing the dollar, right? And here I'm not doing that because I think my work speaks for itself.
Yeah.
And I'm being afforded. I go in at 7:30 and I leave at 3:30, so that gives me time.
I miss those days.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the positive sides of government contract work.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some negatives too. But that's that just takes some time to kind of work through. And I think now I'm finally in a position where I kind of worked a little bit of this when we were in Phoenix, and I worked at Boeing way back when. That was one of the things that I went to work at 7 and was home by 3. But we also had to pick up the kid from school and go home, and but again, we were literally at that point living hand to mouth, not like where we have some extra slush fund available to do these extra positive things that we want to do. But we just didn't have it then.
We were talking about minimum wage at work not minimum wage, but kind of minimum wage, and like what we all started working at. So Jason, he throws out that he started 25 or 50 cents above minimum wage.
Which back then was like 7.
Now it's $4.50.
Oh, okay.
So I figured it up. It's $9,400 a year.
Oh yeah.
That's pre-tax and everything. I'm we were sitting there talking with a couple customers, and it's what would you even you'd have to have 4 or 5 jobs. You'd have to work 23 hours a day.
Yeah, exactly.
To make ends meet today.
Yeah, you would.
So we talk about working and chasing the mighty dollar. Prospectively, we're all doing fairly well.
Yeah. And that's why I look at these things, and again, it comes back to those what do you want, and again, telling my future self looking at me, and what would I tell them? I should have done more sooner, but I don't necessarily mean it monetarily.
Yeah, no. Mine 100% is coaching and giving back, and it has nothing to do with. I wish I probably would have invested money earlier, but honestly, that's not what came to my mind. My mind was, I should have started coaching and trying to make an impact on anybody around me that I could. Right.
And again, it's so crazy because just the way the world spins, right, and how things kind of line out, and everybody it was like, that's I don't believe in fate or any of that. Well, I mean, as much as you don't want to, I think fate does have a part, has a hand in everybody's existence at some point. And fate, she's a fickle mistress. That's the word I'm looking for, because it's very difficult to understand why things go the way that they go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just.
Of course, honestly, I don't know if I would have been mature enough to do the things that I'm doing.
For me, I think.
Like, I've always been mature, but mature mentally enough to think about, hey, if I go coach, I can maybe make some positive impact on some people.
Right.
Or, if I can use some of my money or the company that I work with to try to give back to this.
Right.
Like, I don't think mentally mature enough in that aspect.
No, because I think
it would be nice to think that I would have done those things back then, but
right, because I think a lot of that what it boils down to is coming back to, at a certain point in life, you're no longer chasing the dollar, right, but you're chasing the quality of life. Whereas initially you're chasing to keep up with the Joneses and do all that kind of stuff, right? Like, you want to have all this stuff, but at some point the stuff doesn't matter. And the things that you can do to help out do.
Yeah.
And that's where I think I started seeing that probably more so when I knew my father was sick, and seeing some of the things that like I tell you what, man, my dad fought that with game face on the entire time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he didn't do anything to deviate from what the doctors told him. He marched on. And unfortunately, it just, the illness was bigger than he was. And it's one of those things, like, if he can do that, then there's anything else that I can look at, I can do.
Well, and honestly, I guess I really didn't start thinking about that stuff until I had kids.
Yeah.
That's when my perspective changed.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned, like, you change a little bit when you have kids. You change a little bit when when your kids have kids, right?
Yeah.
So you look at that, but then I think some of that too is looking at the other end of the spectrum. And when you lose some people, right, you look at the fragility of life and understand that not every day is guaranteed, right? And I'm not trying to cross over into that negative, that kind of that morbid side, but that's a stark fact of reality, is that we don't get out of this alive.
No.
And you want to leave a lasting impact. Again, I was here, but what did I do while I was here? And a lot of times, when somebody passes away and somebody's given their eulogy, right, they talk about the dash, right? Born such and such a date, died such and such a date, but what they did in the dash is what people are going to remember.
Yeah.
Well, right now, I don't know that I've done enough in my dash to make it memorable.
Yeah, I think you have. I think that's that negative side of things where we don't ever think that we're doing enough. But
right.
I know that we had some impact on some of those kids.
Yeah. Well, and like I said,
One for sure.
Yeah.
Like, Derek we made definitely an impact on that kid.
Yeah, I just remember the final game with him. And,
exactly.
And just that.
Like, him breaking down on us was what we had been asking not literally breaking down on us.
But he left all of his heart and his passion out on the field, which is what we were asking the kids to do.
Yeah, and
win or lose didn't matter, but we wanted to make sure that every kid gave their all when they were out on the field.
Yeah, and hopefully that moment carries with him for a long time.
Yeah, and we may never see him again.
Yeah,
I would hope that I get to see him, because I want to be one of those people at some point where they recognize me as a coach and they say, "Hey, coach," you know what I mean, and they'll pick me out of a crowd, because even now, if I saw some of my old coaches, I still call them coach.
Yeah,
because when I met them, that's how they were introduced to me, and it's the ultimate sign of respect that I could give them is to call them coach.
Yeah,
and but it's just how I was raised, right? Like, you gave everybody a respect until they proved that they weren't worthy of that respect.
Yeah.
And they've always maintained that level of respect for me. So I kind of hope that, and that's
Yeah.
that's how I can pass it down, right? You know, pay it forward, so to speak.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let us know, like, what's y'all's biggest thing?
yeah.
What would you
tell your future self?
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form, you know, leave a comment down below by all means, and let us know what you would, if you could go back, what would you tell your right? That's what it said. What would you tell your future self? Yeah. What do you think your future self will remember about you now? And you know, my future self should be.
Yeah.
You should have done more.
You should have done more.
Yeah.
So, is that what yours would be? What is yours? Let us know.
Yep. What are
Like
yours?
you said, drop a comment down below. Tell us why or why not you think that we're wrong.
Right.
That we haven't. You know.
Have we done enough, or have we not done enough? And if so, you know, let us know. And if
Yeah.
and how would you go about making it enough?
Yeah.
Right. Like, what is it? What would be enough? So I have an idea in my head, and maybe if we get some comments, you know, we'll come back and circle back and
Yeah.
have another conversation about it, and kind of take your feedback and see.
Yeah.
Have a conversation about it.
And if this has enlightened you, and realize, like, we're up here talking about not doing enough, wanting to do stuff sooner. Maybe now that you've seen some of the stuff that we've I guess had to go through to realize that we wanted to do more, and it inspires you, then let us
Right.
know. Like, let us know how it inspired you. Let us know what you're doing to hopefully leave a better legacy, or whatever you want that to look like. So.
Right. You know, and by all, like we always say, be the change you want to see, and if you want to change things, change them. Just have a positive impact, and
Yeah.
you know, keep moving forward.
Don't let the vulnerability outweigh the courage to be vulnerable and get something done.
Right.
You're your own worst nightmare.
Oh yeah, we're our own worst critics in more ways than you can imagine.
Turn out the noise from everybody else. Do what you think is right, and because at the end of the day, the only person that needs to be happy with you is you.
That's correct.
So.
And with that, we'll wrap up this episode by saying like, share, subscribe, comment down below. And I'm Craig.
John.
We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks.